just trying to be myself. It's a crazy world, looking to find my place, and all they do is here I am, just trying to run the race in the slow pace. All I'm trying to do is run, not win, and all they do is mirror, mirror, tell me, what is it about them? Living like it's their game.
Welcome to Foresight. My name is Dr. Nat Fuller. The history of marketing can be traced back to ancient civilizations where various forms of trade and barter systems were prevalent. In the 17th century, we saw the rise of printing technology, in which newspapers became popular for advertisement. In the 18th and 19th centuries, we saw the Industrial Revolution, in which logos and brand names became important tools in establishing brand identity. In the 20th century, we saw the rise of radio and television as a dominant advertising medium, where companies began creating jingles and catchy slogans just to capture customer attention. In present day times, we have the internet, along with websites, emails, social media, search engines, along with companies that promote their products and communication with potential customers in real time. To dig a little deeper into present day marketing concepts, I have a subject matter expert in market growth and communication, Mr. Troy Sandidge. Troy, welcome to Foresight.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited. Let's talk through it.
Awesome, man. I'd like to really thank you for being on the show today. I think we're going to have really, really deep conversations about market growth. So, hey, Troy, why don't we dig into it? Tell me a little bit about yourself, just a bio, just introduction, etc.
Yeah, so I'm a former electrical engineer, turned digital marketer, eventually became a growth strategist and really niched in on that. 15 years of experience in B2B, SaaS, fintech, IT, all the things as far as industries and verticals go. But I've also been in politics. I've also been in nonprofits. So I'm very agnostic and more centralized around how do I elevate growth and all those things. So, it's funny when people ask that question as someone, and you understand this too, Nat, about how do I articulate in this moment? I find the most relevant thing about my bio in this moment is just my intent to make an impact through how I create strategy, systems, and solutions for sustainable growth.
That's
and
awesome.
Really, that's my calling to what I'm trying to do moving forward, for sure.
That's awesome. And, Troy, I'm glad you brought that up because that leads into my second question. Just with your background and your expertise, what makes marketing campaigns really successful?
I love this question. Obviously, the most marketing answer there is on the planet is it depends. But if we want to go deeper than that, I find that what makes marketing campaigns successful is that whatever you're putting into it, you're getting more out of it, as simply put. Because depending on the vertical, depending on the running joke is you could put any word in front of marketing and it's a whole new marketing segment, a whole new industry, a whole new anything. But stripping that away, whether it's revenue, awareness, impact, following, whatever the metric or the measured outcome is, at the end of the day, marketing's job and what makes it successful is that you're receiving more out than what you're putting in at a ratio that's not only sustainable, but it is generating what you're trying to achieve. Now, what's fun about marketing campaign success, honestly, it's a science experiment every single time. It is a literal science experiment where you're expected to fail 95% of the time from the jump. In the hopes that over time, you'll find a small little window of success and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger to then it becomes wherever you need it to become.
Hey, Troy, that is awesome. And you know what? You really caught my attention when you said it was a science experiment, right? Because as you know, I'm a science guy. I don't really have a strong business background. And just so everyone knows, all my Foresight audience, that's why Troy is on this show, to educate me on business, because Troy is just a very, subject matter expert in this particular area. But no, I never really thought about it as a science experiment. But the way you kind of articulate it and you described it, it makes sense because you're experimenting. And I'm assuming, Troy, you want to experiment or you want to fail fast to figure out what doesn't work. Is that really a good idea, or am I totally, completely off rails here?
I would say there's two parts to the coin. And I'm a person, for those who don't know, they meet for the first time, I speak in mnemonics and analogies to hopefully break up kind of the mirage of everything to make it more clear and clarity for anyone who's listening or watching. And so if you're looking at it from that perspective, it's kind of like when you go to the gym, do you want to get that quick pump right away and like, yeah, you go on the rest of the day? Or do you want that slow ease into it to keep you longevity? And so with marketing, when you're trying to navigate that, sometimes you want to fail fast, but other times I don't want to fail fast. I want to see a spark to keep me going, to keep me engaged, to feel like, okay, because sometimes if that door slam in your face too quickly, it's a wrap. You do that first rep and you ain't got it for the day, I might take my gym bag and go home. And so I would say, and most people would say fail fast, but that's it. Maybe if you're in like a hyper growth scenario where time really matters in the case. But I would say for most people, you really want a gradual and defined ratio of time set. Hey, if I don't achieve by this time, it is now deemed a failure. I need to pivot. Because you do need some time to see the science experiment, to see how does this respond over a period of time. That is very critical. And so I would say when you approach it from that lens, that's probably the better way to go than to just fail fast and then be defeated and maybe don't feel inclined to try again.
That's awesome. That is awesome, Troy. And as I'm talking to you, I'm mentally taking notes, but I'm also, have someone like listening to you and taking notes in the back. So, because this is all great information here. So, hey, let's pivot to, I guess, our third question. How important is it to really understand target audience and competition?
I think the first thing to think about when you're looking at a target audience, or in the marketing world, they say ICP, your intentional client profile or customer profile, but marketing is a million acronyms for everything. So let's just say your ideal audience profile. And so when you're trying to define that, this is something I have learned, is something I try to express to clients. And I challenge traditional marketing for modern day marketing. It is no longer black and white. Your audience, your ideal audience, we always try to put them into who's going to be a buyer only. And if they're not a buyer, away with it. I challenge that. And so I created a thing called, it's all about relationships, because we're dealing with humans. And we're trying to get to the relationship status of buyers, advocates, and elevators. And when you think of this bubble, when I'm doing my audience, you're forcing yourself to look at the lens of the greater scope and saying, cool, how many people are going to want to be a buyer? If they don't want to be a buyer, the circle gets wider. How many people want to be an elevator? Buyer, an advocate. And then if they don't want to be an advocate, then it gets wider, and then want to be an elevator. And so when you think of this, again, it's literally the inner circles of a target goal. Buyer is obviously the most central, and advocate and elevator when you expand out. When you look at that lens, it actually allows you to quantify and define value to anyone and everyone you meet as part of your expanded audience versus only those who are willing to buy today. Because in 2 weeks' time, they could want to buy tomorrow. And so I want to anchor everyone, when you're thinking of your audience, don't think of just buyers. Think of your buyers, advocates, and elevators first. Now, the other part of it, when we're looking at competition, first things first, there is always enough space for everybody. There is always enough space for everybody. First thing I want to anchor. The second thing I want to anchor, when you look at competition, sometimes it's not about how long they've been in the industry. Look at how much money they're spending on marketing. Look how big their team is. If you're trying to compare apples to oranges and you saying, look how big this brand is, well, how much money are they burning on marketing every second of every day? Of course, that's ridiculous. You can't compete on that end. But when you want to honestly verify and compare for competition to your benefit, study where they're failing. Look at their comments of, this isn't working. Look at the poor reviews. Look at all the things that they're missing. And you can ride that wave and undercut and get all of that opportunities underneath. It's kind of like, you know, when you're looking at a whale.
Right.
I forgot the little creature that snacks on under the whale, and everything that the whale's missing to catch, they just grabbing it up. That is the best way to navigate your competitors, because they're always going to miss something that you can exploit and take advantage of.
You know, that is a great answer, Troy. And you know, and hearing you talking, you know, I'm, as you guys, or as you know, I do a lot of work with AI, machine learning, and what I got out of what you're saying, I particularly like the fact that we're all human, right? And I think sometimes even on the internet can sometimes be really synthetic, where, you know, you start to really lose the understanding of a person being a human and how they think and how they behave. And don't get me wrong, AI, ML, you know, that's sort of kind of the way we're going with understanding human behavior, particularly when it comes to computing on the internet, things of that nature. But I think what you just said is just really important, right? With all of this technology, with all this innovation, we still really have to understand the human aspect and human behavior, because guess what? The end users on the end of that mouse or on the end of that computer, they're human, right? And business owners, they're human. So understanding target audience and competition and just, you know, tying that to human aspect, I just think that was just awesome, right? You kind of blew my mind away when you said that. All right. How important is it to integrate online, offline marketing efforts to a cohesive campaign? What are your thoughts on that, Troy?
You know, when I used to do a lot in the social good nonprofit space, this was a very commonality solution I had to come up with, because you're dealing with maybe brands who are late to the game, digital and social and AI and all that integrations, and the back of their success has always been non-digital components or impact, especially if you're very front facing in the community. And so the one thing to think about when you're dealing with integrating online and offline marketing efforts is, how am I going to capture the offline to elevate the online to drive back to the offline? It's think of it like the circle of life. You know, it's a whole thing. And so when you capture the offline to project on the online, you're taking one thing and expanded it to this wide audience net for people to feel something real. Versus if you were just only on online, you're going to approach it a very meticulous, almost desensitized way of creation and output, because this is how everyone does it. But for some reason, when you capture something that's shocking, like shock value, or like hits you in the heart, you know, when you think of during COVID, some good news, like you're capturing offline things and putting it on the digital platform, it hits different. It causes you to pause. And so the first thing you should do is, what is my capture plan for anything we're doing offline so we can promote it digitally online? The second thing to think about when you're dealing with the online and offline integration is, where are you sending them to impact the offline impact? If you're looking at it from that perspective, just stopping at, I got a follower off that, is not enough. And I don't know why I'm still stuck on a gym analogy, because I'm just going to bring it in. What good is it to go to the gym every day?
Sure.
And I'm sure people would love to say they can check that off their list, but they never do anything at the gym.
Right.
So if you're only online and you're driving folk to watch some video or follow your account, that's good.
Sure.
But does that drive someone to deal with you from an offline perspective? Anyone who's a brick and mortar, anyone who actually has a literal physical business, you all about getting folk through the door.
Right.
And so the goal is, with online, I need to build community and keep them in that loop and create demand for them to take the next action to leave the digital space, this screen we're looking at right now, the audio experience you're hearing right now, and walk to where you are.
That's awesome.
When you can do that, now you have a very, not only cohesive, but a very impactful thing. And the glue of all of that is creating demand through community to drive them there. Because the community, all I need then is one person to go there and say, you know what, Sue? You know what, Mark? That was a good experience.
Sure.
And the community is like, for real? I'm going to go
Right.
to. I'm going to go to. So anytime you're trying to combine online and offline integration to make marketing success happen, you
Right.
need to create the demand. And that's typically through capturing the offline, through
Sure.
video, whatever, and then driving them through community and using your community. If you remember buyers, advocates, and elevators, use
Right.
your community to become your advocate and expand your elevators to get them to the actual place.
That is awesome. And you know what? And as you're talking about that, Troy, because I'm a little old school, you heard that term word by mouth. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's kind of, you get customers usually by word by mouth, but in the digital perspective, it could be just what email referrals. It could be some type of, hey, I'm going to send you to this person's LinkedIn URL. Check this person out. I had a great experience from this person. Or I'm going to go on their LinkedIn or whatever, and then write them a great recommendation. That all came into my mind just hearing you talk about just generating that demand, right, and getting people excited. So hey, now let's kind of pivot to the next question because I think it's relevant here. What kind of metrics are good for measuring success of marketing campaigns? And I would imagine, based on your last response, creating a demand probably is a great KPI, key performance indicator, or some type of metric you want to really think about. What are some other metrics, in your opinion and your experience, that are really vital for understanding and measuring successful marketing campaigns?
Definitely. This isn't like an official one per se, but cost per effort.
Oh, wow.
I
Okay.
really want. I've been stressing that a lot recently.
Right.
And how do we define cost per effort? You could take it the very literal sense of
Right.
how much money you're spending to drive something, but
Sure.
then people can say that as cost per click and
Sure.
CPM and all that jazz. But when you say
Right.
cost per effort, I'm talking about the entire marketing team, or you as an army of one, is exerting in this campaign versus doing other things.
Sure.
And I've been trying to articulate is busyness isn't the answer.
Okay.
Productiveness is the
Right.
answer.
Right.
And so we're looking at how is it being successful? Is the campaign working without me being busy? Is
Gotcha.
it me being intentional?
Right.
The other thing I would say, obviously, whatever your defined ROI is, return on investment, return on interest,
Sure.
return on impact, however people want to say it, with that for that end result. But even within that, so we have the two anchorings, your cost per your effort or energy, and obviously the outcome being the ROI.
Right.
In the middle, are you seeing additional residual impacts?
Sure.
Point and take it. We make this, we push it out online,
Right.
and all of a sudden I get someone saying to me, "Hey, I just saw your interview on Foresight. Would you like to have a conversation?"
Sure.
Now, again,
Exactly.
that's a separate thing in its totality,
Right.
but that pathway zips back to this moment.
Sure.
And so I would say, I would encourage you, what are the other subset of ways this is connecting? And if you start seeing a lot of that, that's a measurement of success as well. And that actually gives you more depth and layers that, breaks the fourth wall beyond the digital components that most people unfortunately focus on the most. When I
Right.
want you to look at it, how was this campaign collectively impacting you from the bottom line to everything in between? If you can repeat that success with
Right.
less energy and honing it in, the better you'll be in the long run.
I like it, especially the repeatable concept that you just mentioned, right? Because I just think, as a business owner, just like me and you, we don't want to start from scratch every time we want to do maybe a marketing campaign, right? We want to reuse, right? And maybe use things that we used previously and then put it forward into a next campaign to generate additional ROI. So yeah, I really like that answer and that focus of just being repeatable and having a certain large amount of frequency with the campaigns. Troy, can you give me an example of a marketing campaign in which you basically face some type of challenge, right? You face some type of obstacle and you were able to overcome it, right? Or, maybe you introduced something new that maybe the company or the people didn't really understand. Yeah, provide us some insight on that.
I've been working on this new example recently, and because it's different. It is definitely different than what most marketers would say, or just those in
Right.
marketing in general. Um, How do you market something you don't own
Wow.
to drive revenue for your business?
Sure.
So that's the hook, right? The
Right.
context is, in a former life, I was head of marketing for a contract manufacturer. So
Right.
for those who don't understand what that is, if you have an iPhone, maybe Apple didn't manufacture it, they contracted a
Right.
sub-manufacturer to manufacture a certain component or components to create the iPhone that you hold in your hand or that you're watching or listening to this experience right now. So there's
Sure.
your anchor point. So the
Right.
thing is, though, because we have NDAs and you deal with IPs and all the different things, you can't say that's yours.
Right.
You might have created every component of it, but
Sure.
then you provide it to the higher brand to then sell it. And so how do you use that anchor point of example, what you built, for somebody else who's making a massive market share on, without breaking your NDAs, without messing up with any IPs, and doing a way that's wholesome and collective as a marketer? Now,
Right.
imagine most marketers, they don't think about it. They're going to push the product. I
Of course.
can't. My hands are tied behind my back. I cannot
Right.
market this product as our own. I can't mention the brand name or nothing.
That
Well,
makes sense.
in another life, I've always wanted to be a lawyer, specifically in comm law
Sure.
or anything of that nature. So let's
Right.
say I put my lawyer hat on for a second. I'm analyzing, seeing everything. And you know what came to my mind? Telling the story of the product.
Right.
Third party. So something so simple. So
Sure.
what did I do? I created a landing page and I mapped out different stories of how this product impact the audience at large. And I can share what the product is now. So the product was a fetal heart rate monitor, and it
Okay.
impacted
Sure.
obviously women who have premature babies in Rwanda
course.
and different places in Nigeria, all places like Africa, places in
Right.
Germany, things like that.
Right.
And so we were highlighting the stories of the impact of this product on our website. And this is the time where, you know, you could blog and you get a ton of views. The time when
Sure.
Twitter was actually named Twitter, and you could
Right.
tweet something and it would index in an SEO and it would get all this impact. That's what I did. We ran that campaign and I called it Making Products That Matter.
That's cool.
And we ran the campaign, didn't claim nothing. We
Right.
just highlighted what the value of this product was.
Right.
Now, here's the beauty. I'm going to bring it on home. Here's the beauty of this moment here. And this is me in my early days, so I didn't know how
Right.
great this moment was till years later.
Right.
We index higher than the very brand that created it, y'all. We were having people coming to the site, engaging with the content, engaging all the different videos.
Sure.
That it was their videos. We embedded it. They're watching,
Right.
so they're seeing their YouTube videos go up. They're seeing
Right.
people putting in more orders. They're getting more exposure on social media.
Sure.
We're tagging them and everything. And
Sure.
all we're doing, we're almost like a media company, just highlighting their value and impact on the world.
Right.
And you know what happened? Their numbers went up, which meant our numbers went up because
Sure.
we had more ticketed orders to build the components of the product.
Exactly.
And it got so point that the marketing team reached out and said, you have our blessing to mention us in the marketing of it because it's done so well for
Right.
us.
Right.
Now, what can we learn from that as navigating a challenge, and how do we do it? Community over everything.
Sure.
When you can create and articulate the value of something that your community can resonate around it, people eventually will see it and identify it, and it will attract more opportunities to you. Now,
Right.
the 50,000 view, if this wasn't even, if the client itself didn't want to add more value, there's probably other brands who are like, I have a product. You're not only making a social impact, the way you're doing it still gives us all the credit. And
Sure.
actually helps us get more products sold. Well, who wouldn't want to work with a contract manufacturer that has a
Right.
marketing arm that's going to help me sell more without even giving the credit,
Right.
and serving as a third-party validation factor for us? That sounds like a win-win for everybody as a marketing solution. And that's just one example of something I had to navigate. How do you market a product you can't claim to market?
Right. That, and Troy, you've probably heard of disruptive technologies, right? Innovation that comes in and kind of disrupts the norm. What you just described kind of disrupts, to me, 20, 30 years of marketing methodology, right? Where, it was all about marketing your product, right? Getting your product out there in front. And what you did was you did the exact opposite. You said, no, we're going to talk about the impact of the product. Oh, but by the way, I'm not going to tell you what the product is. I mean, that, and then you were successful at it. That's what made that story very interesting. So, I mean, and I'm assuming that concept, which, you probably should get it patent, by the way, but that concept sounds like it's repeatable, meaning that it could be done over and over again. What are your thoughts on that? Yeah.
I totally agree. And I love what you did at the beginning of this when you walked us through the history.
Right.
And I don't think people appreciate the lessons learned through history. And I'm gonna get a 60-second anchor point for this moment.
Yeah, go for it.
If we go back to history and you go to any marketing textbook, the first thing they teach you is the 5 P's of marketing. That's product, price, people, place, and promotion. That's what they teach you.
Right.
And then as you elevate and grow, you become more aware, and we get more in the psychological and sociological components of it. And they've combined it under the 7 C's of marketing. That's customer, content, context, community, convenience, cohesion, and conversion.
Right.
All great things. But as of now, in the modern era, there's another layer to this pyramid that I've been pitching called the 4 E's: engagement, exclusivity, experience, and emotion. And so if we're using the anchor point of our example that I shared here, my way around it was creating engagement through exclusivity. You can only see the anchoring of how we're doing it from this blog post and how we're talking about this brand. And they're having an experience, and they're becoming more attached to the emotion. If I anchor it even further, what we talked about before, that human element that everybody be missing, that they don't account for, when you think of human first, engagement, exclusivity, experience, and emotion are all the 4 triggers to psychologically connect a human to your product as something deemed value, whether they're a buyer, advocate, or elevator, to do something with it, to drive demand and community for it. And so from the history, we're not replacing the 5 P's or the 7 C's. We're elevating it to be more human-centric.
Yes.
And even with AI, as much as it is, you still need the human-centric element to make it impactful. AI, and you know this better than anybody, gives you the massive volume, the ability to assess more information, to quantify more data, to eliminate a lot of the grunts and mundane tasks. But you still need that human calibrator to make it successful.
Hey, Troy, I love it, man. I love it. I wish I had another 5 hours with you. This is great, man. How do you measure and improve brand awareness? And I know you kind of touched on it a little bit in the other questions, but bring it on home here, right? Like, how do I really know, or how can I really measure or even improve my brand awareness? I think, my audience, probably a lot of other people, who will be listening to this, they really probably want to know a lot about that, because brand now really kind of determines how successful you will be in terms of even getting yourself in the front door, right? You even talk to individuals, right? So what are your thoughts on measuring and improving brand awareness?
Speaking of history, and I love this question. If we think back to, I think his name was David Acker, who created the Acker brand equity model. I won't go into detail on how all of it is, but I will say this. There's 5 components, and it's brand loyalty, brand awareness, which we're talking about, perceived quality, brand association, and about assets, your IP, IP assets. And so, Troy, we're talking about brand awareness. So why are you giving us the 5 components of brand equity, if you will? And you have to understand, when brand awareness is a component of the 5 components that you need to actually make your brand equity value rise, it gives you the context for how to look at awareness. So when I look at awareness, I need to be able to explain these 4 questions: your brand identity, who are you? Your brand meaning, what are you? Your brand response, what about you? And your brand relationships, what about you in relationship to me? And so your awareness, to justify how it's going to be successful, can they identify you?
Sure.
Do they understand what you're trying to articulate, your mission, your purpose? Do they give you a response, and preferably a positive one?
Sure.
And do they seek to create a relationship with the brand entity? And so this is how you know your brand awareness is working. You take the label off what you do. Would they still know it's you? Would they still know it's you?
Yeah, good point.
If you don't have enough awareness that differentiates you from somebody else,
Right.
then it won't work. It won't matter.
Right.
You're gonna sound like everybody else in the seat.
Exactly. And the whole objective is to sound unique, right? To be,
Exactly.
to kind of make yourself different from the rest of the noise or the rest of the crowd, right? So you can stand out and say, hey, look, I'm different. And and then when you come up and talk to me, I'll tell you why I'm different. And I'll show you why I'm different. That's great. That is great. That is awesome. Troy, like I said, man, I wish I could talk to you for another 6 hours. But when people see this Foresight, the next question they're probably going to, probably ask, or they're really curious about is, what is the best way to contact you for any type of marketing consulting?
Well, the great thing about me, I thought this back in 2015. But Troy, how do I find you? I'm literally find Troy everywhere on the internet. And to this day, I still people say, I found him. So find Troy everywhere on social media, findtroy.com or growwithtroy.com if you want all of my links in one place. Outside of that, I'm a fractional CMO. I'm a growth strategist. And I'm all about just making sustainability, scalability work for your brand. And I'm agnostic of industry or vertical.
That is awesome, Troy. Great. And, and we'll be sharing your information here at the end of Foresight. So all my audience and everyone that sees this, they'll be able to either get in touch with you via your email or your LinkedIn. But hey, Troy, again, I really appreciate you being on Foresight. Thank you for coming in and talking a little bit about your background. And we're definitely going to have you on again. So thank you, sir.
Thank you so much for having me.
How do I deal with what I'm feeling? Maybe I just don't. What you do